Warning, you are entering a restricted area. Return to where you came from, or be destroyed.
You're heading your way towards the useless nerdy knowledge. Please do not go any further. If you will not comply, you will hear a nerd rambling.
Nerd alert!
Get those nerds! Nerd! 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 Exterminate!
Go ahead, make my day.
Bazinga!
I'll be back.
Hello, fellow podcast listeners. Welcome back to more useless, nerdy knowledge. I'm your host, Ben, and today we're, well, I guess you could call this maybe a second season or whatever. I know it's been a very long time since I made my last episode. Been a long time coming, but, figured it's one of those things where it's I gotta get back into it, because, I took a little break, had to, basically it was work got involved, tried to do some, intern work and all that stuff. I don't want to get into it too much, but, it's just one of those things, and that where it's just I just haven't been, I know I wanted to make a new one, it's just I didn't know what to talk about, and yet I have an entire list on my computer of a whole bunch of different lists of new episodes to work on and all that, but I feel like it's one of those things where it's I gotta be in the right mood. So this is kind of what it is. So today I figured I would talk about something quite interesting, which would be the Star Wars Clone Wars series. Now, of course, with, the Star Wars franchise, it's probably one of the most beloved franchises of all time. Of course, with Star Wars nowadays, fans are a bit, mixed up in it. They're giving different mixed opinions on it. But anyway, so I'm just going to talk about basically the Clone Wars series, and then maybe as a little bonus, I'll talk about the Rebels series. So, of course, with the very first Star Wars, or as some people call it, Star Wars A New Hope, Luke Skywalker basically mentioned the whole Clone Wars deal. He's like, you fought in the Clone Wars? And then, Obi-Wan Kenobi says, he was in the Clone Wars. And, people have always been speculating, what are the Clone Wars? What is this? What was that? And, of course, once you've seen Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which was part of the prequel trilogy, basically, they're clone troopers that serve for the, the Jedi Knights, or the Republic, basically. Basically, helping them defend against the Separatist army, with the battle droids and all that. So that's basically what, the whole Clone Wars was, but, of course, with, in between episodes 2 and 3, there was, it's been, a good few years gap in between those episodes, basically, of, the Clone Wars. So, there hasn't been, a series that necessarily came out when the prequel trilogy came out. Not necessarily, but technically there was. I got them here on DVD, there only exist 2 volumes of it, but I believe in, oh boy, what was it? 2003, I want to say. It was either 2003 or 2004. Again, it was between when episodes 2 and 3 were releasing. There was a series on Cartoon Network, which was actually created by the same guy who animated Samurai Jack, which was just called Star Wars Clone Wars. It was basically just a 2D animated series, and was basically the whole story that was in between episodes 2 and 3, basically. And this introduced quite a lot of stuff even before their official debuts, technically. So this has, but obviously, it has Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi in there, and it introduces an unnamed Sith assassin, which is she's bald and she's all pale and all this stuff, and she was never really given an official name until the later Clone Wars series, where she was known as Asajj Ventress. So technically, you could say that this series was her debut. And it's definitely a lot more different than any of the other Star Wars series, for one thing. And this was also technically General Grievous's debut, too, where even animated, he looks really different, in a way. There was one interesting thing I did actually want to see of, how the whole Padawan to Knight class works. Basically, it shows of how, Anakin Skywalker goes from Jedi Padawan to Jedi Knight. And it's actually kind of interesting because for many years I've always wanted to see how that works, how one gradually goes from like Padawan to Knight, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, it's not very well known, but it's one of those things where it's like, I would have to include it in my Star Wars collection. It's like I can't necessarily live without it, you know what I mean? But of course, there was like all the other animated series that was like back in the 80s, like Star Wars Droids and Star Wars Ewoks, which are but more of like another piece of Star Wars history, I guess you would say. But then later in around, oh boy, what year was this? Around 2008, there was an actual theatrically released animated Star Wars movie called Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And this is basically where the whole Star Wars Clone Wars series took off. First, it was in a movie where it actually introduced other characters, and this is basically where Asajj Ventress had a name, like an official name. And this also introduced Anakin's unknown Padawan, Ahsoka Tano, or Ahsoka Tano. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. I think it's Tano. Might be, yeah. But basically, Ahsoka Tano is probably one of my favorite characters in the Star Wars franchise, mainly because, like, she's only been officially introduced around this movie, basically, and towards, these Star Wars: The Clone Wars series in 2008. So she's not... That's one more thing I guess I should mention, is that, like, with the original 2D animated Star Wars Clone Wars series, it's technically canon, but not necessarily anymore, because it does, like, bring the Clone Wars all to a conclusion where it leads into Episode 3, where Chancellor Palpatine is kidnapped. But I'm assuming that this was like a separate timeline where Ahsoka Tano and all these other different things never happened, basically. So it's like you could say in one timeline it is canon, but I think by nowadays standards, after Clone Wars was the Clone Wars was released, the 2D Clone Wars series is no longer canon, or no longer a thing, because it basically gives it retroactive continuity of, like, fixing up the things that it should have. Anyway, with the movie, as a movie, the Star Wars: The Clone Wars movie, it's not really great. It's more like what it should have been. It should have been just a TV movie, and debatably by a lot of people, that it's like the worst theatrically released Star Wars movie, but that would probably either be Solo or Rise of Skywalker, in my opinion. Maybe Last Jedi to some people, but I don't want to get into all of that. Basically, as a movie, it's not great, but it's okay. Like an idiot, I streamed these on Disney Plus. This is how I watched it first. Because, like, I just assumed that as the series first, and then, like an absolute idiot, when I was in 3 episodes in already, I was like, oh crap, I need to watch the movie, because I completely forgot that there was a movie before, like, the series even came out. So that's what I did first, and then I was like, okay, and then I actually watched the movie, because when they introduced Ahsoka without giving her a proper intro, I was like, okay, there's Ahsoka. They didn't even explain how she was there. But the movie, thankfully, did show that, but again, it's my own fault for not thinking clearly yet, of being like, oh yeah, I need to watch the movie first and then the series. So anyway, after that, there's a total as of now, there are a total of 7 seasons, and the 7th or final season came out, I believe, last year already. Because I think the thing is that, with the whole debacle of, like, Disney buying out Lucasfilm for a while, basically like the whole Star Wars franchise and all that, like, basically ended, like, season 6, which on DVD here is dubbed as The Lost Missions, and that's kind of like where the whole thing was, where it's like, yeah, it was like, basically it was like canceled from Cartoon Network, and then later last year, the final season was picked off to an actual proper conclusion, and it's pretty good. I'll get into that more in a little bit, but I do want to talk about, like, the first 5 seasons, and right here I have, like, this box set I'm holding in my hands right now of seasons 1 through 5. Of course, like, after watching this on Disney Plus, I had to get, like, the entire series on DVD. I just couldn't help myself. It was surprisingly good. There's some here and there that aren't as great, or some a bit boring, but there are some things I do like about it. The characters, like, in the first few seasons, the characters weren't exactly that great, but gradually over time they started getting better. With the clones, even though they're just like clone troopers and all that, they have some unique personalities and even, like, names and all that. There's, like, so many great episodes that I just wish I had, like, an episode guide, like, with this this DVD set that I have with me. Maybe they're I don't know. But really, it's really good. Not only does it include like so many like cool episodes and memorable characters and all that stuff, but it even includes like some of the older characters from like the original Star Wars trilogy, like Chewbacca, and it shows Admiral Akbar before he like became an admiral. I think he was a commander at first, and a bunch of other different things. They even have Jabba the Hutt in there a few times, and probably one of the really amazing badass characters in the series is Cad Bane, who's basically a bounty hunter, and he's like very ruthless. Like he's like one of those not giving an F type of characters, and he's pretty cool, honestly. He did return in the season 1 of the Book of Boba Fett, and unfortunately, that's pretty much like probably the only thing he'll appear in. He's obviously appeared in like this new series called The Bad Batch. I'll get into that in a little bit. So basically, like, with the entire Clone Wars series, it's pretty cool. Now, there are some episodes where it's like, gives like, these different characters the spotlight. Like, usually, sometimes it gives like the clone troopers there, like Captain Rex or Commander Cody working together, or even there's like a couple episodes where Mace Windu and Jar Jar Binks were like teaming up together, and all this other different stuff happened. And then Ahsoka was like sometimes taking the table and all that stuff. I think that the true stars, in my opinion, the true stars of the entire series has to be Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex. Now, Captain Rex, this was basically his debut in the entire series, where he's like all blue and all that. He's definitely one of my favorite clone characters. Commander Cody's cool and all that, and all these other different clones like Echo and all these other different characters are cool. But I think that Captain Rex is really cool. Like something about him is just like defines a really kick-ass clone trooper. Now, as for Ahsoka Tano, like her first couple of episodes weren't necessarily, or her first when she was in the series, the first couple of seasons, she wasn't necessarily great. She was just like, here and there sometimes. But gradually over time, she did get a lot better and more likable, and honestly, a lot more interesting, really. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but I will spoil a couple of things in order to add some things up. So if you've not seen the Clone Wars series, I highly recommend that you do it right now. You can stream it on Disney+, but if you're that kind of person like me who prefers physical media, then I would recommend getting them on DVD. Obviously, you would have to get like the movie on DVD, and then like seasons 1 through 5 on DVD that has like a it's basically one whole box set, and then the Lost Missions on DVD. And technically, there's no official release of it. I got like a bootleg basically of the final season because it's only a Disney Plus exclusive, which I guess makes sense. Bit of a pain, but still, it's like it's worth it whether it's a bootleg or whatever. As long as it's in great quality and all that, then I'm all for it. But anyway, back into it. I definitely feel like that Ahsoka Tano is definitely like the whole star of the entire series. And I mean, heck, even like with the final season, she's like right smack dab in the middle of the cover and all that of the final season. But anyway, the one, and again, like I said, there are some spoilers in there, so I'll probably cover only the most basic and most important episodes that are really great. Of course, there's lots of different things that like tie many different things up together. One of them being that Asajj Ventress was betrayed by Count Dooku, which was, originally her own master. But then, Darth Sidious like ordered Dooku to basically to assassinate or execute her. Basically, Dooku thought that she did, and basically, she wanted to take revenge. So she figured, well, how can I do that? And basically, she wanted to try and have an apprentice, similar to how Darth Maul was to Sidious. Years ago. So she went to like the same planet that Darth Maul was originally from, and got a new apprentice, or Zabrak, I think the species is called. I might be wrong, but basically, beefed him up just like Darth Maul and made him very ruthless, named Savage Opress, who's basically similar to Darth Maul, only he's just a bit more yellow-colored and honestly very ruthless. But it's unfortunate that he only appeared in the Clone Wars series, because he seemed like a pretty cool character. But he was killed off like instantly. Almost. But basically, after that, there's like a whole debacle of like Savage Opress betraying Ventress and all this other different stuff. So basically, eventually, towards like the middle of the series, he discovered that Darth Maul is still alive. Yeah, if you're not familiar with Darth Maul, he was in Episode 1 of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, where he was proclaimed to be dead after being cut in half by Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that's the thing I find really hard to believe in so many of these things, where it's like, lightsabers can cauterize wounds and all this other different stuff, or you can stab, these people and somehow they live. But if Darth Maul stabs Qui-Gon Jinn, he immediately dies. Like, what? But anyway, so basically, Darth Maul somehow, he's been like, been crazy for all these years, no longer being a Sith or anything like that, losing his legs. He's been in like the robotic spider legs and all that. Eventually, he came to his senses, and he's voiced by, oh, geez Louise, I cannot remember his name, but basically the same guy who, played Starkiller in the Star Wars: The Force Unleashed video games, and that's actually really a good video game series that I played a lot as a kid. Because something about that was interesting, but unfortunately, with 3 never coming out, it's not canon anymore to the series. But whatever. Sam Witwer, basically did the voice of Darth Maul, and he's pretty cool. Though it may not sound similar to the Darth Maul from Episode 1, I still think it's a pretty welcome type thing, and he does numerous voices too, not just Darth Maul. But anyway, so they try to. Basically, it's like the whole plot that they take over the planet of Mandalore, basically the planet of where the Mandalorians are, and all this other different stuff. Darth Sidious kills Savage Opress, and then there's one other thing that I found really interesting. So this was something I've always been wondering about ever since I saw Episode 3. So obviously everybody knows about Order 66 in Episode 3, and being at the whole how did this whole thing start? Well, there's one episode where it's the Jedi and the clones are trying to fight against one separatist battle, but then all of a sudden one stormtrooper somehow goes off the grid, I guess you would say, acting all normal and reciting the words, "Good soldiers follow orders, kill the Jedi," and something's wrong with him. Basically, the whole thing, and this is huge spoilers for anyone that doesn't want to know. So basically, there's an inhibitor chip or whatever they want to call it that's been put in the heads of all the clone troopers on Kamino. And basically, with that chip in there, once the Order 66 has been given, they've been given the order to, kill all the Jedi. Now, that's something I like and definitely makes sense to me, because ever since I saw Episode 3, they, immediately turned on the Jedi just like that. I'm like, what? Why? How does that work? They were friends and allies with them. They fought them in the war. And it makes a lot of sense once I see this, and it's really cool. Now, Fives, who's, basically, his code numbers are 5555 or whatever, and that's why it's called Fives. He acts all crazy and all this stuff, but he's actually he is actually a clone trooper who really tried to save the entire galaxy from the Jedi from extinction, and it's so unfortunate for that to happen. And it's definitely a really powerful episode, really is. I think first couple episodes actually, but it's still really, really good. The way that they executed that, of how the whole explanation of the Order 66 thing formed up, and then later there's another good couple episodes where Ahsoka Tano has been framed. This is a very interesting series of episodes here where there's been a whole assassination attempt that's been supposedly done by a Jedi. So it's one of those things where it's the Jedi can't trust one another and all that. So while Ahsoka Tano is trying to talk to one of the leaders or something like that, it looks like she's being force choked, but we as the audience know that Ahsoka wasn't doing it, although the hologram security camera, or whatever you want to call it, captured her thinking that she did do it. But somehow, someone was using the Force, and she just couldn't see it. We just don't know who. So she's running all around, trying to prove that she's innocent while running away from them. And, even she's just I cannot trust anyone. I don't know who to trust or where to go. But then eventually, Asajj Ventress, gives up on being a Sith or whatever the heck and decides to be a bounty hunter. And then, her and Ahsoka Tano come to an agreement of, trying to give out a good word for her and all that. And then eventually down the line, the apprentice of Luminar Unduli, Barasafi, was apparently the traitor, it turns out. And though the Jedi Order was actually going to expel her from the thing, eventually when she was found innocent, the Jedi were forgiving her for the mistake. And this actually made me tear up, to be completely honest, because the way that her character was developed a lot better rather than the first couple of seasons. And these seasons all towards 5 definitely made me feel very terrible and emotional for her, where she was given the opportunity to come back to the Jedi Order, but unfortunately she just decided to say no and just went on her own way, which is honestly very sad, really, but it did kind of make sense for me to be okay, so this probably explains why we've never heard of this character or why she wasn't in Episode 3 anywhere. But then eventually, after Season 6, or The Lost Missions, was released, this was more of Yoda's type of episode, trying to not try to prevent Order, Episode 3 from happening, or whatever. But then eventually, like, once Disney Plus eventually re-released the Clone Wars by giving it its final season, this was basically like before and mainly between Episode 3 right here. And I'll be completely honest, this was a fantastic season to go through because it showed quite a lot. First few episodes are basically like a normal Clone Wars episode, basically, and it introduces what would have its own series as the Bad Batch, which are like a group of interesting clone troopers that like have different personalities and different traits. So they're basically not your normal clone troopers. It's like Hunter, Tech, Echo, Wrecker, and all these other different things where it's like one's a tough guy, one's a brainy tech guy, one's the leader and all that stuff. So it's quite interesting. I have watched a few episodes of the Bad Batch series, which takes place after the Clone Wars, and so far it's okay. I haven't finished watching it yet, but so far it's not too bad. So that's basically how they're introduced in there. And with this, I kind of feel a bit bad that I haven't seen it until like a few months ago, but even though this was released last year or whatever. But eventually Ahsoka Tano is brought back, where she like makes new friends and all that stuff, and eventually is not technically brought back into the Jedi Order, but is like managed to help them during the whole, towards the end of the Clone Wars, where she like tries to help Darth Maul from, being the leader of Mandalore and all that other stuff. And then like I won't spoil like the final episodes and all that, but it's definitely something where you must watch it. It's definitely the episode where it takes place in between episodes, in between episode 3 in a way. And the way it's like executed is like so well done. It definitely puts you on the edge of your seat, being like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? I don't know, because it's like so intense and so great. Really, it's just like really cool. And with like Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex being in like the last episode, it's very fitting. Really, it's really great because they were in the beginning, like in the very beginning from the start, and it's really great. So if you have not seen the Star Wars Clone Wars series, I highly recommend that you do. There are some episodes that kind of drag on for a good few episodes, or some that aren't as interesting. There's like a couple of them that involve like the whole Star Wars political debates and all that stuff, which I find really boring. It's mainly any episodes that have Padme in it for like the longest time. But anyway, I think that Star Wars Clone Wars series is pretty good, really. Now with the Star Wars, and I can definitely say I do feel a bit upset that this was one of the series that I missed out on my childhood, where it's like, back in 2008, this was a big deal, especially in like Lego sets, and even when the video game came out for Lego and all that. But it just wasn't something that at first didn't seem interesting to me at first. But now that I finally watched it, I'm kind of a bit upset that I didn't watch all the episodes. It's like some episodes I saw here and there on TV, but after that, it just didn't seem like something that it appealed to me. Now, with the Star Wars Rebels series that was on Disney XD for about 4 seasons, the series isn't as great as the Clone Wars, but I think it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. It has like some good characters back from the Clone Wars series, like Ahsoka, Captain Rex, and all these other different characters. And then we get some cool new characters like Zeb, Jared, excuse me, Chopper, which is like a little astromech droid. But then we're introduced to like all these other different characters like Kanan and Hera and Ezra and all, and even Sabine and all that. And they're pretty cool. They're interesting enough. With all these other old characters, you bring back Darth Vader, of course, and Grand Moff Tarkin, and all these other different characters, which is pretty cool. And they even introduced this new type of thing called Inquisitors. So basically, they're like the Emperor's personal assassins to try and hunt down the remaining Jedi. I figured that would have been like basically the whole Empire's point to it, and like Darth Vader's point, but I guess it makes sense for the Inquisitors, because in order to execute the Jedi, you have to be a Jedi. You can't just like be like the clone troopers and turn on the back so easily. I think that the Jedis would be more self-aware if there's still some out there. But it's pretty cool. They bring back lots of other different characters like Ahsoka. They bring back Darth Maul. All these other characters. It's pretty cool. It is unfortunate that it only lasted about 4 seasons, but I think it's fine. Honestly. There's not a whole lot else to say about it, but yeah. With the Bad Batch series, even though I haven't finished watching it, there's like the first episode's like about an hour long, but all I can say is that so far it's not too bad. Anyway, that's all pretty much all I wanted to say about the entire Clone Wars series. So yeah. I do want to apologize for not making an episode in a good few months or so. Again, it's just one of those things where it's like, I have to get in the right mood. in order to do it. Hopefully, I'm planning on like doing more episodes with like some other people eventually, or Halloween's like not too far now. Like it's almost September basically. September's literally tomorrow when I'm recording this. But anyway, it's like, eventually I'll probably like talk more about like horror movies or horror movie franchises and all that stuff. Or I'll just probably like go over my list and just like, figure out like what I might be able to talk about and all that. So thank you very much for listening to this episode of Useless Nerdy Knowledge. If you'd like to contact me on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at BenWalker2001. If there's anything you want to suggest or anything like that, or even if you want to like come on the show, just like let me know and all that. So other than that, I do want to thank you very much for listening to this episode of Useless Nerdy Knowledge. Maybe I'll talk about like something else, maybe action or sci-fi related in the next episode. We'll figure it out in due time. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys next time.